What's up and welcome back to the channel. The name is Ninja Knight. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell up above for future uploads. Check out the links posted in the description down below to support the channel. Consider joining the channel today. Thank you. So what I'm going to talk about today is Marvel Studios, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and it looks like Marvel Studios has gone 2 for 2 at the moment in terms of terrible shows. WandaVision was absolutely atrocious, and that definitely felt the effects of what Disney decided to do with relation to Gina Carano. And it seems like this is the same sort of situation that is playing out within The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We did get a feeling that it was going to go SJW in the MCU as it's going to become, and it's only taken one episode for it to do it, and then certainly in the second episode it decided to go full woke. This is a company that's in big trouble. This is not something that fans are fans of, and it's not something fans are going to buy into. Now, I know an awful lot of people are out there now aren't watching this on Disney Plus, if you know what I'm saying, and that's going to be the way I think it's going to happen with Marvel Studios going forward. You were seeing them struggling, and you were seeing them posting weird comments after weird comments, and certain comments that are coming out there that they want to go full on down this route. And by all means, head on down this route. This is going to be one that's not going to be financially profitable for the company, and this is something that's a constructive criticism. What you're also seeing in the show, and from the 2 episodes that you're seeing, is a total embarrassment to what they've decided to do with Sam Wilson. Anthony Mackie, I think, is a quite capable actor, and I think that's where the largest problem I have within this series is what they're deciding to do with the Sam Wilson character. Now, they have talked at length before the show had debuted that they were going to make it modern and feel like modern times with the sort of things that people are going through, and it didn't take too long for this episode to get into that within the first episode. So Sam Wilson, it seems, was coerced to hand over the shield of Captain America. Now, this is a very strange development given that Cap was the one who owned the shield, who held the shield for so long, so you would assume that it was his property to be able to hand it over to whoever he wanted. Clearly, there's been some sort of government guideline that has interjected and said that the shield actually belongs to them and that they should be able to divvy out to who they want. I don't think that there's an issue with that, and seemingly now Bucky and Sam Wilson seem to have some sort of chip on their shoulder with relation to that. If it's a government artifact, whether it's handed to you or not by Steve Rogers, it is now not in the possession of Steve Rogers anymore, and it was actually given to him from the military, from the government, from Captain America, the First Avenger. Yet they're still going to walk around here with a chip on their shoulders that they weren't the ones chosen. And these are the same 2 Avengers, by the way. One fella was running around for decades causing absolute mischief, and then you have a guy then that's a failed paratrooper. So I don't think that they were going to be the best choice of Captain America anyway with the way the MCU have set things up. But this is the end result that we're going to get with Sam Wilson. Sam Wilson is going to be Captain America by the end of this series. There's nothing surer. He has been Captain America within the comics. They're not going to make a Bucky Barnes because it's very clear that they want to make Bucky Barnes the whipping boy within this series. So episode 1, the shield is handed over. By the end of the episode, we have Wyatt Russell that's playing John Walker, who we all know is US agent, that's going to be handing over as Captain America. So there's a chip on Sam's shoulder already, because we can see the connotations that we're starting to draw up. Well, Sam Wilson was passed over for another white man. So the white man now is Captain America rather than Sam Wilson. So we can see the bitterness that's starting to evolve. And then towards the end of the episode, his sister comes in and tells me, you better see this on the TV with the introduction of the new Captain America in John Walker. Now, within that episode also, you have the sister that's talk about these people and that people, and you can see the way she feels bitter about very different things, and particularly what's gone on between her and Sam Wilson. They then go to a bank, and this is where the wokeness starts to move itself on forward. And I'm not even talking about the fact that Bucky is in some sort of therapy now where he's talking to a white woman, an old woman that's telling him how he should think and feel. This is a man that's decades old, and yet he's listening to somebody else talk about how he should feel. It's insane. So anyway, you go back then and you talk to the sister. The sister is bitter about a number of things and feels that they ain't treated right and all this sort of stuff. And then they go to a bank to look for a loan. This happens in the second episode also, but it has a bit of a bigger connotation than as the episode wings itself on, I think, as you going forward and winging itself on. Starts off very well with the action, but they go to a bank and they ask for a loan. And they're sitting opposite a white man, and the white man has no interest in giving them the loan. He actually then at some stage says to Sam Wilson, I know your face from somewhere, you look like you're familiar. And then he realises that he's Falcon, and then is like, changes. His attitude completely changes. Now, what's that about? This is set up then for the second episode, where this again happens in the second episode, and I'm going to explain more on why that they've set up this type of narrative going forward within this series, and I do think that it will probably occur again in a subsequent episode. But what you're saying then is they leave and they go away from the bank. They've been torn down and told, no thanks, even though we know who you are, you're going out of here, we've no interest. And the episode then is pretty uneventful then after the fact. Then there's not much that happens. We have the reveal of John Walker as Cap, and the episode ends there. The next episode opens up, so episode 2 opens up pretty well. We've got a bit of John Walker that's featuring on what's happening with him, who is he, what's he about, and he seems kind of like your all-American typical jock really. He's a guy that's been selected as Captain America. He's going to try to do his best. It looks like the field test that he has with the shield looks really good. And then over the course of the episode then we're seeing that there is the flag smashers that are going to be some sort of super soldiers which they're picking up on. Second episode though suffers a massive issue with wokeness. It's still very clear that Bucky Barnes is going to be portrayed as white guilt throughout this series, and as a man that has a strong mentality and was supposed to be, from what we understand, fixed in Wakanda, is now self-doubting again and having a lot of different problems. So this is what you're getting to see. However then, as the episode progresses and they're finding out more about super soldiers, which magically didn't exist now over the last couple of movies, they could have used some help from some of these people, but yet they sounded like they wanted to be nowhere to be found. So we'll see maybe as the series progresses as to what's going on. But then we arrive at a neighbourhood, and this is where the wokeness kicks in to full. We're walking into the neighbourhood along with Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes, and as they're walking along, a little kid, a black kid also, says to Sam Wilson, "Hey man, aren't you Black Falcon?" And Sam Wilson retorts and says, "No, I'm just Falcon. What if I just called you Black Kid? That doesn't make sense." So this is another attack that they're going to do in the mainstream comic book industry very soon. They've already started it, by the way, that they want to alter certain names with the likes of Black in it. They do not want to call Black Panther anymore. They do not want to call Black Manta anymore. They just want to call them Panther and Manta. And all of this type of nonsense that they're going to drive going forward, because when you look at who's at the wheel at the likes of Marvel and DC, they are not people that care about the properties, they are not people that care about the characters. And certainly the people that are in the writer's room for this one do not care about the characters or the properties. So that was the first instance of it really coming to a head, but it goes off the charts then when they go into a house. They knock on the door and they ask to speak to Isaiah, and then the door is answered and it's like, well, Isaiah doesn't want to see you. And then Bucky Barnes then makes a suggestion that he says, well, tell him about this incident in the bar or whatever it was, and they go into the house then, and they're met then by an elderly black gentleman, and this gentleman then looks visibly shook when he sees Bucky. And to me, I thought to myself initially from looking at it, oh, this is a guy that Bucky obviously fought alongside with throughout some war, and that he recognises him. He's like, well, how does he look the same? How is he not aged? No, I couldn't have been more wrong. So we delve in then to the history briefly of this guy, which is he was also a super soldier that nobody talked about because he feels that was because he was black. So we've got Blacked in America, as I like to call him, and nobody talked about him before. He was totally hidden. And then he says then after he returned, they decided to just throw him in jail. No reason, just throw him in jail. And then whilst I was there, they experimented on me. They took my blood, and that's how they're doing other super soldiers. And remember that time that I whipped your butt? He signed the Bucky, by the way, and I broke off most of that metal arm. That's the only reason why I invited you into the house, was because I wanted to see if the arm grew back and what you look like. That was legitimately it, and I couldn't believe what we were saying. And that wasn't even the worst part of it. We're getting to the worst part now in a moment. He throws something into the wall then. It's very clear then he's a super soldier, and you say to yourself, okay, that's really interesting to see. Maybe they could have used him in the past. If they were any sort of good writers, they might have been able to weave this guy into the script and maybe even have flashbacks with this guy and show how he actually helped out Captain America, and that he's looking at these two guys and saying, look, guys need to be the proteges or something like that. That's not the way they decided to go with. They decided to make this guy look like a stereotypical angry guy. And it doesn't serve the purpose of the show. It actually makes the show go woke, go SJW, and look terrible. They step outside then, and there's a verbal argument then between Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes. Police pull up out of nowhere, and I mean nowhere, into this neighbourhood. Two white cops get out of the car and immediately ask Bucky Barnes if Sam Wilson is bothering him. Everybody knows the connotations of what that scene means. They draw their weapons then, and they're looking at Sam Wilson, and then the two men come to the agreement of, hey, we're just having a disagreement. We don't need to get excited here whatsoever. Don't do any of this. But the viewer already knows the connotation as to what's going on here. They're looking at Sam and the way Sam looks, and that's what the cops are doing. This is garbage tier writing, and I cannot believe that this was passed. I cannot believe that this was filmed. I cannot believe that this is the way they wanted to go forward, because this is driving a very bad narrative going forward, and this is a narrative that's been driven by certain people over the last couple of months, and it's not the way to go. These people keep talking about unity and healing and all this type of stuff, anything but. As a result then, and like I talked about earlier on, it's brought back to the fact that the officers actually realise who Sam Wilson is. So you get what I'm saying? First episode, they had no interest in giving him a loan because they thought what he looked like. Then they said, oh, well actually we know who we are, we're still not giving you the loan. Second episode, they're like, oh, we're going to point the weapons at you now because of what you look like. Oh, actually, this is who you are. And this is the stuff that we're getting to see now constantly. This is a euphemism, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to say that everybody is profiled that look like Sam Wilson, and only when police and these various different institutions realise who these people are, do they then calm down and say to themselves, well, this is probably a bad look and maybe we can help you out, or maybe we'll just tell you to move along. This is a huge problem for this show. This is 2 episodes in and it's already gone down the Swanee for me. It's only going to get worse, I think, within these episodes. I don't know whether there's 8 or 9 episodes for this. There was 9, I think, with WandaVision. Terrible episodes. We've seen the return of Zemo. We know what's going to happen with Walker. We know that they're just going to devolve into some sort of... they're going to devolve into some sort of bad character arc for him. As you can see, he has a sidekick, Hoskins. He was a black man, and that's the way they're going to go with this. They're going to make Sam the lead and Bucky's the sidekick, and they're going to say, well, this is the superior version of the couple rather than the couple of you that's Captain America along with Hoskins. This is a show that's in very steady decline. It's absolutely swan dived after the initial scene of the very good, and I have to say, I thought it was a very enjoyable action sequence that we see when Falcon is chasing after Batroc. I think that was an excellent sequence, and then it immediately then goes into this identity politics SJW woke nonsense. The show doesn't need to do this. This is the point of this video. The show could have been something very akin to the Jason Bourne movies, in my opinion. It could have been something that there was a lot of stuff going on in the background. The fact that they've drawn correlations now to what Sam looks like, it seems to be the reason why he was passed over as Cap, and even if they don't make it very overtly obvious, that's the reason what they're trying to hint at. Then as these 2 instances that I've highlighted show, they're not overtly saying it, but it's very obvious to see why he was denied a loan, and then also then why the cops got out of their car and started to hassle Sam rather than point the weapons at both men. And this is the thing, they're painting Bucky as a really bad guy within this series, because don't forget, that's why they're doing this. They're not showing all of the Winter Soldier stuff that he was up to over the years to paint him out as a good guy. They're trying to show what a horrible human being that he is, and that's the narrative they're trying to draw in. They're trying to draw in what a bad guy he is. How can this guy sit along this elderly gentleman whose son that he took out when he was the Winter Soldier, an innocent bystander? Then you're looking then, for example, then at Barnes and the way he's been crippled within this series, in that he's been mentally just totally destroyed, that he has to go to a psychiatric therapist, and that he's sitting there and she's holding on the power against this guy. We all see what's up. Then you're only seeing then, for example, what's going to happen with Zemo. Zemo's in prison. We have Sharon Carter that's going to be occurring. And then you have then finally John Walker. I have a very bad feeling of what's going to happen to John Walker within this season. You're seeing some very weird stuff occurring online as well surrounding Wyatt Russell and John Walker. People are calling him all sort of ist and phobe. It's incredible stuff. Some people actually think that this guy is real. They think that the John Walker character is real, that he'll never be Steve Rogers. This is the type of fan that you've attracted now, and when I say fan, these are people, these kind of stan accounts is what they're called. You've attracted these weirdos to this, and these same weirdos now have migrated over and they're talking under likes of James Gunn's posts. As an aside, this is a series that's in very big trouble. It's 2 episodes in. People haven't quite caught on to it. I don't think an awful lot of people are talking about this series because a lot of people did, in fact, cancel their Disney Plus, and I think people that are talking about it, like myself, aren't watching it on Disney Plus. You know what I'm saying? So this is an episode, I think 2 episodes in, I think this is really struggling, that this is only going to get heightened as this season moves on, because we've seen the same sort of nonsense heightened around WandaVision. We started off with this kind of strong independent woman, and then by the end of it then it was like, yo Vision, I don't need you, I'm here on my own, I can sort everything out myself, and I'm ultimately and overall powerful. We can see how it's going to go with this. Big trouble going forward. This is the MCU in a nutshell. I've talked to people and I've said that the MCU is going to fall very soon. I didn't think it'd be as soon as this, and certainly if they go down this route, they're going to continue going on downhill. And it's going to be something I think that we're going to remember in years to come. Remember when Robert Downey Jr. donned the Iron Man suit. Remember when we had top tier characters, when we were able to see Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man stand with Don Cheadle's War Machine, and there was none of this type of nonsense that was floated about within those movies. That's a big problem I think that Marvel have now, particularly with TV shows. They obviously feel that they need to fill it with something. What they're deciding to fill it with is something that people do not want, and it's something that people are not interested in. Yes, you can have your themes, yes, you can have your storylines, but you're seeing the same sort of storyline occur again and again. It's lacking any sort of original sort of content. You're seeing the exact same story more or less that played out with itself in Watchmen. So we've seen it before. We're seeing the constant victimization of people rather than heroism. Why do you think that Black Panther was so successful? Because he focused more so on the heroism that he was able to do and the heroic character he is, rather than crying about what he looked like. And that is why Black Panther was such a popular character. The Falcon, the way he's going on, the way he's been treated, isn't someone people are going to look up to and say, that's a hero. And I'm disappointed for Anthony Mackie. I'm disappointed for the Sam Wilson character, because I think that this was an opportunity to flesh out this character, to make him really likeable, and for his transition then to be Captain America to be something that I think a lot of fans would have gotten on board with. Instead, you're going to have a lot of fans that are not going to be interested in this, and I'll be very curious to see how they're going to market Sam Wilson as Captain America to a certain country, because again, if they are shrinking the likes of John Boyega on posters for Star Wars, what are they going to do with Mackie? I don't think they're going to be posting this over on a certain server anytime soon. Anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. I think it's going to be even worse going forward. I can't see this series improving whatsoever. I can see it just keep going the way it's going to go. Drop a comment below and let me know if you've seen the same things that I seen within the 2 episodes, or if there was even more that you've seen within those 2 episodes. They were just the 2 big incidents that I linked together and that were very overtly and obvious to be seen. I think when you're saying that this was Marvel's ace in the hole versus the likes of the Snyderverse and the Snyder Cut of Justice League, it's gone out with an absolute whimper. It has now, the MCU. What's happened in the last couple of weeks has just been a steady and strong momentum towards the Snyder Cut and towards the Snyderverse, and I'm delighted to say that, because that is a universe at the moment that hasn't decided to play into any of this type of nonsense. I think Marvel giving itself TV shows and hours longs of content, very poor idea, and it's just going to draw into what's going on, what they think is going on out in the modern world and out at the moment, and what's been on social media, rather than writing good stories, rather than keeping it tight knit, having 2 guys that are on the run. That would have been a better way of doing things, rather than doing what they did, which is totally and utterly destroy 2 characters, and they're going to do more. This is damage that's going to be irreparable to the MCU. This is what you're witnessing, is the downfall of the MCU before your very eyes. I'm going to leave the video there. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell up above for future uploads. Check out the links posted in the description down below to support the channel. Consider joining the channel today, and I'll talk to you later. Good luck.